That's the beat on Poor Tom. It's an interesting beat, and I wanted to talk about it, just do a brief little demonstration on it because, well, first of all, there was a request for it, and I thought rather than play the whole song, which is basically that beat throughout the whole tune, I would just play a little example of it and just talk about what's happening with it. It's kind of a unique beat, in my opinion, as far as Bonham goes, even though there are things about it that are definitely trademark Bonzo. The fact that he used that throughout a whole song is what stands out to me and makes it unique. I can't think of any other tune other than maybe Gallows Pole, which has a similar kind of feel to it. I believe also recorded at the same span of time. That has that kind of snare drum 16th note rhythm that's fairly repetitive. I think that Bonzo was often playing what the bass and the guitar were playing in terms of the way he played his beats. He would set up his beats around the riff. So this tune is kind of unique to me in that the drum beat isn't necessarily related to the riff. I mean, there's kind of a chugging 16th note guitar pattern that isn't entirely consistent, though. There's a lot of finger picking going on. And Jones is kind of noodling almost kind of soloistically throughout the song. He references that rhythm a little bit, but it's not like Bonzo was playing with an actual riff. So the beat kind of stands out on its own because the beat is really part of the song. I kind of feel like this is one of those tunes where the drum beat is almost as integral to the song as the melody, because the drum beat is kind of melodic, really. For example, the bass drum, what the bass drum is doing, no one else is doing. And usually, if you think about Zeppelin tunes, the way Bonham's bass drum patterns link up with what the bass, either what Jones is playing or some aspect of the riff, that's pretty typical. But in this tune, Bonham comes up with this beat which fits in really nicely under that guitar line, and it's basically this. Four, four, four. So it starts on beat 1. And he answers that with 2 more bass drum beats played thusly. So, in the midst of that pattern, you have 16th notes which are constantly moving, alternating right, left between both hands, like this. Now, that's simple enough, but nothing is ever quite that simple with Bonzo and the way he plays his beats, sets up his fills, etc. There's always some very subtle and kind of nuanced touch and feel to whatever he plays. And in this case, it's no exception. There's a lot of dynamic shading in the way he plays the 16th notes, first of all. He's not just going or center of the drum. That would sound mechanical and kind of boring after a while. So the way he sets up this beat, there's a lot of different levels of dynamics, and almost like the phrasing is almost like ghosting a lot of it, so you get more of this kind of effect. So what's happening there is basically the left hand is playing some of the accents. The snare drum is kind of accenting along with the bass drum, and creates this feeling of the phrase. It almost has a swing to it, even though he's not playing. I mean, he's not really playing. He's playing 16th notes, but at times there's almost a little bit of a lilt, or just a subtlety in the phrasing that makes it sound like it's swinging. And that's something very unique to his style, and that goes for so many of his beats and the fills that he plays. Even if it's an 8th note fill, it can end up having just a little bit of a swing kind of edge to it. So I'm going to play this again very slowly so you can kind of get an idea of how the phrasing locks in on the snare with the bass drum. Now you can probably hear there's almost a little bit of a stagger in the beat. Again, it's not. At least I hope it didn't sound like that. The other thing is, and this is worth noting, there's a mix of rimshots and center of the drum sticking going on, and most obviously with those two upbeat 8th notes, these. And then again, the phrasing kind of mixes up. There are times where it sounds like you hear a rim shot on the downbeat with the bass drum, like. So forth. Now the other thing to keep in mind on this, and this actually makes the beat a little more challenging, and I believe he is playing the hi-hat on the upbeats. It's kind of hard to hear clearly on every measure, but there are definitely measures where you can hear the hi-hat. And I used to think that he was only playing it on the second half of the bar, like this, along with the snare. But there are other moments, if you listen to the instrumental mix, which came out on the Coda Expanded Edition, you can hear a little more clearly that the hi-hat is in there a lot of the time. Again, with Bonzo, nothing is very set, carved in stone for the duration of the song. He likes to vary things and be in the moment. It's kind of like it's kind of like a jazz musician's aesthetic, really. He doesn't like to play things the same way constantly. So, and that's what gives the music such a great creative character. So I'm going to play the beat again, and hope this is helpful, and hope you can work through this beat and play it the way you like to play it.